€150 required. Terms and conditions apply.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
But fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof at the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jimmy McGuinness in his life.
So we're less than 7 weeks away from the start of the Rugby World Cup, and Ireland will begin their warm-up games this day next week when Italy visit the Aviva Stadium. To talk about what shape Joe Schmidt's 31-man squad might take, I'm joined in studio by Rory Keane of the Irish Daily Mail and two of our regular rugby voices, Andy Dunne and James Downey. How are we?
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So it's not far away now. They've had 6 weeks of camp already, is it?
Sort of. They've kind of been
in and out.
In for 2 weeks and then off for 2 weeks and in and out. But yeah, geez, they've been. It's a pretty big build-up, right, isn't it?
They've all been trying to out-Instagram each other, even on their weeks off, I've noticed, of just how seriously they're taking this and their little extra sessions in the gym and how good their diet is. And
that's standard enough, I think, for some of them anyway, you know, but as you say, even the bit of music that they throw in from time to time, they're kept entertained. Look, it's a long time. I think they've done it quite well in how they've gotten out to each of the provinces, and you can get a bit stale if you're out in Carton House, and they've gone out to Abbottstown as well, as we saw this week, which is obviously huge. So.
And they've been out and around the country.
Certainly have, and they still have Portugal to come, out to Quinta for a bit of a warm weather, so nice finish.
Is it necessary to have that long of a build-up? Like, it feels as though there was little or no break, and like that's very much modern sport. I was over with Shane Duffy during the week, and he said he had 3 weeks off from the end of the internationals to be back in pre-season with Brighton. Like, it's not like the old days where you go and you need to recover yourself physically. So with that in mind, do you need 6 weeks together and the mental strain that puts on you?
I think physically they need it, yeah. They would have had a period, pretty long, like a really challenging season for a lot of them, and they did look, I think, physically a little flat by the end of it. Between, say, Leinster's European final, the performance levels physically in the Six Nations, I think they would have had a very deserved break. But then they do need about 6 weeks. I know that's the classic trade-off in pre-season, trying to stop people literally like banging their heads off walls and losing their marbles, while also trying to get into peak physical condition. And a lot of getting into peak physical condition requires almost torture. You know, they're being overtrained with a view to building a reservoir of strength that they can then draw on in the World Cup. But there's a real fine balancing act, I think, between their happiness levels, their sanity, and then what's actually required. I mean, the humidity, for example, in Japan, I noted that England had gone to Treviso apparently because the humidity levels matched Japan. I think they probably said that afterwards.
And they were also training with some sort of a square ball. Did you see this?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see
Every
that.
single Six Nations camp, every England camp, something ridiculous comes up.
Yeah.
Some new technology that never seems to catch on with anybody else. It was a specially designed sort of, maybe it was more rectangular, soft ball that they were using that was somehow going to help their handling skills.
Yeah, they've done stuff for, like, Jamie George was wearing boxing gloves, like throwing the ball into lineouts and stuff, and I haven't seen it really catch on with anyone else. Like,
and they love an old scrum session against the Georgians, just to batter each other.
A few slaps, like, yeah.
Well, they've got about 45 specialist coaches. So if they've got that many specialist coaches, there's a strong chance they kind of climb up their own backside a bit in terms of coming up with innovation. And they had 31 specialist coaches in the 2003 World Cup.
Yeah.
So 16 years later,
sounds
I can't imagine.
Sounds like the Dublin backroom team.
Yeah.
More success.
Yeah. Have you, from what you've been hearing, any great changes in this build-up to 4 years ago? Have many lessons been learnt?
It's hard. It's funny. If you hear it from every camp, though, through the years, like, they always say this is the hardest pre-season we've ever done, like, and that's kind of coming out of the camp. But I think, as you said, with the off weeks, I think the vibe is it's not as intense as it was 4 years ago. There's kind of been less meetings, and they've been getting out a bit more in the evenings and stuff. But yeah, I mean, in terms of build up, I think it's been a bit more relaxed. As you said, it's a long time. I mean, it's 6 weeks already, and it's another 49 days till the opener. So you've got to keep it fresh, like, because fellas will go mad otherwise, like. But
that must be incredibly difficult though, because as you say, it's 49 days to go till the first game, and then you've another 6-7 weeks, hopefully, to go after that. And what you're saying of building up that reservoir of almost overtraining, like, is there a risk with that? Of how difficult is it to time the moment your players are at peak physical condition?
I particularly tricky. I think Gatland is probably in the last 15-20 years seems not Gatland himself, but his strength and conditioning staff, his medical teams seem to be able to get teams to peak when required. He started it with Wasps back in the early 2000s, where they would, you might hockey a Wasps team in October when we were playing over in the Premiership. God help you come April, May when it mattered. Right. And it felt like you were playing a different team, just at a different physical standard.
And what is it? Like in October, were they heavier? Or
yeah, no, I think it was
periodization?
a thing called periodization, where they're prepared to overtrain at times where there's competition going on. Then they're prepared to take weeks off while there's still competition going on, all in the hope that it's going in the direction of, I suppose, the business end of a season and being at peak condition when most people are starting to wane. So he seems to have got that worked out well. He's obviously doing it with Wales. South Africa certainly look to be hitting fairly peak levels of physicality and at the moment. So I don't know if Ireland ever worked it out to the best degree yet. We certainly not in 07.
Yeah.
The last World Cup, Jerry Thorney's piece this morning was talking about the warm-up games. One of the, I think was it 2015, we lost all 4 warm-up games and then won all 4 group games for the first time ever. So there's a lot of cat and mouse going on around it, but I don't think anyone has it bottled and delivered how exactly to prepare.
Yeah, South Africa's interesting because you almost feel watching them, there's a mental side to it as well, that actually maybe they are peaking a bit early, but that they need to prove to themselves before they go to the World Cup that they are at that level.
They're Erasmus just kind of come in and just broke it all down and built them back up again. But yeah, as you said, it's not long ago they were getting hammered by the All Blacks, like 57-0, and now the last 3 games they've won, drawn and lost by 2 points against them. So yeah, I think that kind of, worryingly for Ireland, I think looking too far ahead, they've kind of got that kind of grit back and that kind of belief about it, because I think they have a lot more belief than we do at World Cups, I think,
I think as well, you look at South Africa and you kind of say beforehand, we'd do anything to avoid New Zealand in that quarter. Now it'd be going, well, actually,
no matter who it is.
Exactly, and like before it's like, okay, well, whatever it is, but South Africa just look to have that extra gear now, and I think it's still early. I still think they can improve even more so, and so if Ireland can just get the timing right, as Dunne is saying about that periodisation, it's tough to peak. Matches are starting now, so we'll actually get a glimpse. They're going to change up some squads, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks, what type of sides Joe's going to pick, and I just think it's going to be interesting to see. You're going to presume last couple of games before they go over that they'll try and get a little bit of a settled side. Look, there's a lot in it, isn't there? I think you're looking at players who then try and avoid injury just before they get away as well. And last game, like, the squad will be announced at that stage. Who's going to be on the plane? Like, the Welsh boys will be thinking similar. Like, I saw some of the Welsh boys as well, and they look, just to back up Dunne again, they look big and they look fit, and Jonathan Davies put up a post and he just looked absolutely huge. So it could be another one of these, but I just think that, again, we're looking at South Africa and that, and they are going to be such a tough side.
One of the interesting things about the World Cup prep is in the last World Cup, New Zealand trimmed down. They were going the opposite approach to a lot of teams. So I think collectively their forward pack was one of the lightest squads at the top competing nations in the last World Cup. So they tend to be trend setters and people follow a couple of years later. But it's hard to keep an eye on trends and cycles, and they happen quickly. Certainly, for all intents and purposes, this World Cup looks like everyone's trying to bulk back up again. Yeah. It's going to be a very, very physical tournament, as opposed to maybe 2015, where you had quite a light All Black pack and very skills-based tournament. So
there's obviously been a few open training sessions, but I don't think there's been a huge amount of media access with the Ireland team over the past few weeks. Are you seeing that from the Irish players? The glimpses you get, are they looking a bit more bulked up than normal?
Yeah. They've a few of the open training sessions. They got kind of beasted at the end in front of the crowd, and some of the training looks absolutely horrendous. But it was John Ryan was doing some media there a couple of days ago on YouTube and said, I think they're actually looking forward to getting out on the pitch and actually playing rugby, get away from all the bleep tests and DEXA scans and all that, But no, they're looking trim and ready for it now, But
talking about the mental side of it then, because the last we saw from Ireland wasn't good at the Six Nations, particularly the defeat to Wales and the manner of that. And all right, maybe that late try from Larmour puts something of a gloss on the scoreboard, but the Irish team, is that forgotten about when you get into that sort of length of camp? Are they going into these warm-up games needing to build confidence, or are you just going through phases of play and proving that what you've worked on in the training ground, you can do it on the pitch?
I think they have a huge amount of experience, across the board in terms of players with 50 plus caps. So one bad tournament back in springtime is not going to destroy their confidence. I think collectively they'll probably lack a bit of confidence about combinations and the flow of their game, and they'll probably need to see some change in that, in those warm-up games. I don't think none of us want to see a repeat of what happened in the Six Nations. That first hour against Wales was probably the low, coming from the All Blacks win, the highest point in Joe Schmidt's Irish management probably, and in that team's performance levels. How quickly in 4 months' time probably went right down to one of his lowest moments probably as a coach, and those players, their performance levels were so off the mark against Wales. I don't anticipate they're going to be at the depths they were against Wales in the rain, and with that, Gatland's peaking performance for Grand Slam, we were at the total opposite end. I don't anticipate that's going to be repeated, but I do think they will collectively struggle for a bit of confidence. Once they hit their straps in one or two of these games, I think it'll be forgotten about,
And it is always impossible to know what you can read into these games until probably in hindsight after the World Cup you say maybe there were pointers here and there. The games as always are tough. Italy, might be one Ireland would be expected to win well next week in Dublin, but after that they go to Twickenham to take on England, and then away against Wales, and then finishing up at the Aviva against Wales. And I remember being at the warm-up game against Wales ahead of the last World Cup, and it was a packed Millennium Stadium. The roof was closed on a day when it was about 30 degrees outside. They had the Welsh choir, they had the fireworks, they were trying to build us up. I think it was the day Tommy O'Donnell got that horrific injury that
his hip to knee.
That ruled him out. That actually, sometimes these games can have a feel of importance that's not actually reflected. Do you want them to feel important? Do you want players under pressure in these games?
I think it's a weird one, because it's kind of a balancing act, because you want them to be fired up, you want to get them battle hardened, but the balancing act is, you want your key men getting on the flight as well. So there's that kind of, this is the thing Schmidt is going to have for the next month. He's going to go, I can't. That's what happened in 2007. They wrapped the lads in cotton wool too much, and then they went down to France and they just bombed it. So you've got to get these guys getting collisions and getting beat around the place. But then you don't want to lose people either, as you said, with Tommy O'Donnell, and they lost David Wallace in 2011 in the last game against England. So
I think Jordan Murphy in 03.
Yeah.
Significant players. You're probably Schmidt and the team are probably resigned to the fact they might lose on Brody. Retallick dislocated his shoulder last week.
Falatay's gone as well.
Yeah.
Okay, he hasn't played much, but I think you got to accept that you're going to lose someone along the way, and I think now we're in a better position than where we were 4 years ago, that we have other players to step in if we do. We're not so much heavily reliant on certain positions. We might be in a couple of positions, like if we lost one or two we could struggle, but I just think that it is that you want to peak perfectly for that. Like we got to get past the quarter final, and this is what we've got to look at, and you got to peak for that. There's no point in, as Dunne kind of spoke about it, we lost the 4 games leading up to it, and then we won the 4 group. We have to time it right as well, There's no point in hammering Italy and everything looking great and then just the wheels falling off. I think combinations would be interesting, try and get some of the different combinations on the field the next couple of weeks, so lads are getting used to those, playing with each other again. as Andy said, it was kind of some of them were let down. That collective confidence needs to come to the fore.
We'll get into maybe those who are fighting and scrapping for a place in the squad and pushing for a 23 and then into the starting 15. Just on the combinations, if everybody's fit, like looking at the centre partnership against Wales, it was Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose. Robbie Henshaw's obviously had consistent injury problems. Everybody's fit. Is it Ringrose and Henshaw? Or is it people constantly underestimating Aki?
And Chris Farrell.
Yeah. I think they bring something different each one. For me, if I'm going straight away, I'm going Henshaw, Ringrose. Again, due to kind of familiarity as well of playing with each other at Leinster, if you have that access at 10, 12, 13 with Johnny in there, they're used to playing with each other, like, you know, we're talking about combinations that way. I think Bundy can bring something different as well off the bench, can cover a bit. Chris Farrell as well, something different. You need something different sometimes.
I think Ringrose, for the first time in his career, underperformed. Well, consistently underperformed in the tail end of last season. He's never really experienced that, a loss of form, some poor decisions, some poor execution in his normally strong skill set. So it's probably been a pretty tough time for him psychologically as a young player. How does he, you know, it's a long time your pre-season off to respond to poor form, and you can't get it in the gym, you can't get it back no matter how many sessions you do away from the match intensity. So
is he under a bit of pressure then? Because I would like to think so. Of that Wales defeat, like the manner of that defeat, Joe Schmidt must react to that.
Yeah,
like, somebody surely has to pay the price for that type of performance.
But I don't, not to scapegoat him, but I would like to think he is under pressure because it's good for the Irish setup. There's nobody there within the team that is, well, there's probably a couple, of shoe-ins, but I don't think, for example, Ringrose in a pretty competitive midfield, I doubt he's walking around thinking he's swanning into the starting team, and I doubt Schmidt is giving that impression to him, particularly on the loss of form. And Schmidt famously, I think he was one of the first guys to ever criticise O'Driscoll in Irish rugby history, and I think that was one of the things that set him apart. I think Brian had dropped, had thrown a bad, dropped the
world-class players don't drop that ball.
Exactly, the famous line I was scrambling around for there. But you know, if he's prepared to bring Brian down a peg or two in a training session, I'm damn sure he's going to do it with Gary Ringrose. But I think it's a tricky one. I think Farrell has kind of, Jimmy be a similar physique to him, and you played centre down in Munster, be interested to see what you think. But I think he's probably our most underrated centre, and potentially could slip in there for a couple of the group games.
I think as well, you look, Addison's there, like, we can come back to Chris now, but like Addison's there as well. He's been brought into camp, and he's another one who he's a back three who can slip into midfield as well, which it could be a toss-up between the two of them, you know. And I think the way Chris Farrell was playing in France, like, he was nearly unplayable, you know, the way he was, and he came over here. I think he took a little bit to get used to, you know, and he's one of these players who wants to get his hands on the ball and wants to make things happen a lot of the time. And like, as you say, he's a big boy. He's taller than me. He's way bigger. I looked up to him and, like, you know, he's a big fella. So
6'5", is he?
6'5", and like, and he's got the big shoulders, like, as I say, but he's got that, like, he still has that. I think players underestimate him, that he has that ability to actually, like, get around, like, use his feet, get around, and he does have the offloading ability, which is huge.
He's an excellent wide passer too, and when you got a centre that physique, who can be a target man, who can then, you can use him nearly as a decoy target man, but can also use guys around him in a really effective way while drawing in defenders. That's a, you know, Ringrose can do all those things probably, but just doesn't have that physique. Aki brings something different. Henshaw probably again is somewhere like Farrell, can be a really physical ball carrier, distributor, and also a kind of an attacking offload type player too. So I think that'll be a really interesting midfield area, how he settles on it for the big games. 53106
is a text number. We do need to take a quick break. Andy Dunne, Rory Keane and James Downey are in studio with us. Do get in touch. We'll be back with our Saturday panel in a moment.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard.
Get the best cashback rate in Ireland with the Avantcard Reward Plus credit card. Info correct June 2019. Source ccpc.ie. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Treat yourself with an escape to the K Club, the elegant resort in the heart of the idyllic Irish countryside, Straffan, County Kildare. Take a step back from your daily fatigue and indulge in the K Club's luxury 5-star surroundings. Relax and enjoy our country estate experiences. All only 30 minutes from Dublin. Visit kclub.ie for more details.
With over 15,000 coolers available to hire or buy, HSS Hire has a cooling solution for every workplace. Research shows staff are happier when their surroundings are comfortable. And with HSS Hire's range of fans, air conditioners and coolers, you can transform hot and stuffy into cool and calm. Drop into your local HSS. We've branches nationwide in Dublin, Waterford, Cork, Limerick and Galway, and get up to 50% off your first hire. HSS Hire, you're better equipped.
School's out for summer. Hey everyone, Vinny the Frog here down at Aquazone in the Sport Island campus, Blanchardstown. Come and enjoy tropical wild water fun on our 3 mega slides, our Flow Rider surfing experience, and the pirate ship area for your little ones, as well as a brand new restaurant and great birthday parties. Aquazone is open daily for the summer holidays and every weekend all year round. Book now at aquazone.ie.
The Harvey Norman Bank Holiday Weekend Sale is now on, with massive savings, deals and discounts on TVs and home appliances. Go big and save big, with up to 30% off American fridge freezers. Save €150 on the Dyson Pure Hot and Cool Air Purifier, now just $399. Or get up to 30% off headphones and audio. These deals and so much more in-store and online. And as always, we'll match all our competitors' prices, so why shop anywhere else? The Harvey Norman Bank Holiday Weekend Sale. But hurry, must end Monday.
Go!
Celebrate the bank holiday weekend with Centra. We have great offers, like our delicious Inspired by Centra breakfast range, any 3 for €6. Centra Irish chicken fillets, 680 gram, half price now €4.50. And our mega deal until Sunday, Casiero del Diablo and Yellowtail wine range, any 2 for €15. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy sensibly.
If anyone knows of any lawful impediment, speak now or forever hold your...
Yes! Get in, you beauty!
Celebrate the return of the Premier League. Pick up your free 48-page Premier League guide jam-packed with stats and fixtures. Free this weekend in the Irish Sun on Sunday.
The Off the Ball Open tees off in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd. Join us with return flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, Gala Awards dinner, Peter Lorry Golf Clinic and a live Off the Ball roadshow, all for just €1,750. Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy will be there too. The Off the Ball Open, Abu Dhabi this November. Book by August 18th to avail of this early bird offer at cassidytravel.ie. Deposit of €250 required. Terms and conditions apply.
Across Ireland on 106 to 108 FM and at newstalk.com. This is Newstalk.
Good afternoon, I'm Sharon Lynch. Hundreds of batches of water bottled in Ireland have been withdrawn because they are contaminated with arsenic. The Food Safety Authority issued a recall notice yesterday. It's mostly own brand water at shops and supermarkets which have been affected. Fianna Fáil councillor for Tala in Dublin, Teresa Costello, says since she posted a picture of the recall notice from her local shop, people have been contacting her looking for more information.
When I looked online myself, now I may have missed something, I don't know, but I can't see any kind of really in-depth information for people. Like it just says batch numbers, and if you feel ill after consuming the water, contact your GP.
Fianna Fáil says mental health services will continue to struggle until the number of permanent psychiatric consultant positions increases. The party recently received information from the HSE that shows that just 302 out of 456 psychiatric posts are filled on a permanent basis. Its mental health spokesperson James Brown says the lack of permanent psychiatrists is restricting timely access to much needed services for patients.
Ireland has a baseline of only 6 psychiatric consultants to every 100,000 people, which is about half the EU average. But even of those positions, there's only 2 out of every 3 posts are actually filled on a permanent basis. The rest of the posts are either vacant or they're filled on a temporary basis. Now, this is deeply concerning.
2 men have been injured after a car struck several people in Belfast. It happened just after noon outside the city cemetery on the White Rock Road. The PSNI says 1 man has been arrested. And there have been 3 times more drug seizures in Oberstown this year than in all of 2018. The Children's Detention Campus in Dublin currently accommodates 37 young offenders. Last year there were 7 drug seizures in the facility, but 23 in the first half of 2019, according to details released under the Freedom of Information Act. Sinn Féin's Justice spokesman Martin Kenny says it's a concern.
In one sense, it could represent that there is an increase in the amount of drugs there, or we would prefer to think that it's an increase in the vigilance of the staff and that they're actually catching more drugs going into it.
That's it, more in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. You'll find our lowest car insurance quotes online, guaranteed.
Today will be dry in the east and north. There will still be good dry and bright intervals during the afternoon. Top temperatures of 18 to 22 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Yeah, welcome back to our Saturday panel. Andy Dunne is in studio, Rory Keane of the Irish Daily Mail and James Downey as well. We're looking ahead to the Rugby World Cup, which is just 7 weeks away, but just a week away is Ireland's opening warm-up game against Italy. 53106 is the text number. The arrogance of those sitting in studio slagging off England is gas. Have you all forgot the hiding they gave us recently in our own ground? Are you slagging off England?
I certainly I love slagging off England for having multiple coaches, but I didn't question the standard of play they have.
Is it known that England have more coaches?
Yes.
Have England more coaches than Ireland?
Oh, they've loads. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've eye specialists and everything, and yeah.
Why don't we have all these specialists? Surely Joe Schmidt would be demanding we have all these specialists.
That's right.
It's a little vignette. That's what imperialism is, basically. So it's been going on for 800 years.
Low Cusack has arrived in the studio. Here we go. Is that reflected in our style of rugby play?
Yeah, well, no, they are, I'd be right up there in my mind for favourites, maybe along with South Africa and New Zealand. Doesn't mean I have to love how they approach everything, though.
You were saying during the ad break there that you were on some of these pre-season training camps, the hardcore ones?
Well, a long time ago, maybe 2001 and 2, brought to Spala in Poland, which is about an hour and a half from Auschwitz, and probably as dark a place to go to. Horrible experience. You would get put into cryotherapy chambers that were minus 135 degrees Celsius to help your body recover. So the idea would be you do an animal weight session where your body just is in really a lot of difficulty. You get a build-up of lactic acid. By going into these cryotherapy freezing tanks at minus 135 degrees, you accelerate your recovery. So they kind of bring you out. They if you stay in there for 7 minutes, you die. So they will let you out after about 3.5 minutes. You would tap the door, and then they kind of gradually thaw you out on a bicycle at a very low speed. But what would happen is over a period of 8 to 10 days, you'd put on 2 to 3 kilos of muscle. So it was undeniable that it had benefits, but it's probably
mentally it left you scarred.
One of the most,
is this with the Ireland team?
This was with the Irish squad. Yeah, they brought about 50 guys down in 01. So yeah, I managed to get in on the back of that, and I also went with Bath in 2005. But I think human rights organisations probably got involved after that at some stage. Yeah, but yeah.
And did you break? Is that why you weren't asked back?
No, probably other reasons. Maybe I wouldn't have been asked back. But no, it was. I ended up with Bath. I broke. Yeah, I ended up in breaking out with a guy called Matt Perry, former English fullback. We ended up in a Polish wedding till about 2 a.m. one night. So we broke on that one. But yeah, and not the most pleasant. The pre-season stuff is not the most pleasant for any. Every squad probably has one or two pretty rare individuals who love it, who love every bit of it.
Oh yeah?
I remember Keith Gleeson of Leinster couldn't get enough of pre-season, and probably a few lads in your own background you can think of who adore that. You know, they don't care whether there's a rugby ball involved, but
just like
that wasn't me. Yeah.
Do you like the pain?
No, not at all. No, anytime you're told on a line, it's horrible. But at least nowadays, I suppose there's a ball involved, and it's not as hard, I don't think, that way, and they're looking after bodies. And yeah, I think it's that, we'll put you in that minus 130 and you can do extra work and you can do an extra session, but I never felt that good after a few of them now to actually go out and do an extra session. But look, I'm kind of glad times have moved on to it.
Did you feel the benefits? Like 3 months later, did you think, you know what, it was all worth it?
I can't remember. All I can remember, I'm just still emotionally scarred from it. I can't remember.
Your tears here just thinking about it.
Intervention today.
It's probably. I'm sure I was physically more impressive in some way afterwards. But
Was this when Eddie was coach?
No, Gatland.
Gatland was coach.
I think Eddie.
Eddie O'Sullivan did it.
No, I think Eddie did it as well. Actually. I can't remember, but they had things like strawberry soup as well. So even the cafeteria was disgusting, and the food was
strawberry
weird.
soup.
There was strawberry soup.
Dessert.
There was cabbage. There was a lot of grated carrot. There was lots of veg, and there was lots of chicken and boiled turkey, and it was.
The Welsh love the cryotherapy. That's obviously Gatland's go-to punishment.
Yeah. Well, you gain lean muscle mass quicker than any other way, legally anyway.
But you lose sanity.
Yeah, it's the trade-off. It's a fine line.
So the decisions then that Joe Schmidt's going to face over the next few weeks, and I'm almost wary of reading too much into it because there will be injuries. So it's a 31-man squad, but you're probably going to end up with 4 or 5 players coming across to Japan over the course of the 6-7 weeks.
Be loads of lads taking holidays in Tokyo.
What are the chances?
That was Tom Court in Australia. Happened to be there.
Yeah. So the one that he's certainly been asked about a lot in the little bit of media that he's done so far is the scrum half out half, whether he takes 3 and 2 or 3 and 3. Is there any sense so far? He's been very coy as usual of going to watch them in training and it's going to be a tight call between everybody.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, but he won't tell anyone until he announces it. But he took 2 the last time. But I think it's different that time because the World Cup is just across the water. So, a guy breaks down on the Thursday or the Friday captain's run, you can fly a guy out in 2 or 3 hours. But I think it's if it's a long trip and jet lag, maybe scrum half is so specialist now. I don't know, is he going to take? He could take 3 scrum halves and 3 out halves, because of the injury profile of Carberry and Sexton. He might think, Jesus, we're bringing Carty as well and managing the 2 lads for the last couple of games. So, yeah, I think Murray and Marmion are definitely on the plane, and he could be tempted with, I think John Cooney, the goal kicking and that, But
if Cooney goes, would that suggest then that Carthy or Byrne don't go?
Yeah, there's a lot of permutations because it means, if you bring 3 scrum halves and 3 out halves, then that's 1 less maybe midfielder or back 3 you can bring, or 1 less lock or something. So it's sort of kind of a balancing act, and you have to get up to 31 at some stage. There's going to be casualty somewhere to give yourself the cover,
Yeah, but the distance is interesting actually, because I do remember at the last World Cup sharing a flight back to Cardiff with Mike McCarthy 3 days before the game against Argentina when he'd just been called in after Paul O'Connell had been injured. That it's an hour away, whereby, as you say, if Conor Murray or Johnny Sexton picks up an injury on the Thursday and suddenly Jack Carthy or John Cooney are back in Ireland, you somehow have to go with a player who's not specialised in that role. So does that mean you would go with 3 and 3? Just have to take a risk somewhere?
Well, you do. He has to take a risk. I think he's got a few similar conundrums around tight head as well in the front row. The 2 form guys from last year were probably Carty and John Cooney, so it would be tough on them to not be included. Luke McGrath had injuries. Obviously, his first choices are at 9 and 10 are Murray and Sexton. Carberry covers multiple positions. Shane Horgan, I saw recently, floated the idea, could even Carberry be playing as a 12, like the Ford-Farrell combination? That seems to be on vogue with a lot of coaches. But
is that something, and just to go off on that tangent, if what Shane Horgan's talking about there is a possibility, is that something they would need to be doing in training every single day around this camp?
I don't know. Not based on Joey's skill set. He's someone I think would be quite comfortable thrown in and being able to adapt. But I think based on how the overall team structure is, Joe is pretty dogmatic about every facet of how we play. So if that's the case, I think you could probably throw the likes of Joey Carberry in anywhere and he'd give it a good effort in terms of his skill set. But how the actual overall team and shape of the team might pan out, it is something they'd probably want to do regularly.
I think they wanted, from what I understand, they wanted to look at Joey at 15 a bit in the Six Nations, but then Joey got the hamstring injury and kind of went out the window. But yeah, everyone seems to be doing this, the two playmakers thing, but maybe a 15, because that's where Leinster wanted to play him originally before he went to Munster. That could kind of work, but again, it's not really, as you said, it's not really a Joe thing. He's never, Ireland you're going back to the days of Jared Payne playing fullback to see that kind of twin playmaker role. But
is Henshaw at 15 never to be seen again?
Yeah, I think they're going to put that one to the back burner. No point in risking it unless you have to, especially when you got Joey there who can slot in. As you say, I think it's some of the permutations there are interesting in what they're going to do. I think agree with Andy on, I think if you're going on form, Carty certainly, but again, that was a while ago as well. You got to remember, and there's a bit of pre-season come into it now, and form could have changed. I think you're going to have to manage Johnny. Like, I think if you bring 2 10s, like Johnny on the bench coming on, it's not really him, I don't think. So you'd certainly have 3 10s, I think, and then 9's going to be an interesting one. Will he pull something out of the bag like a kind of Ian Madigan job playing 9, or like Carberry playing 9? I don't know, but you're certainly going to have Murray Marmion, and then I'd go with Cooney. I'd bring an extra 9. So it's so specialist,
What do you want to see then in the warm-up games with 9 and 10? Like, Carthy has played, he's got 3 caps, there've been a few minutes here and there. It doesn't take much for Jack Carthy to be having to play the final 20 minutes of a World Cup quarter-final. It's one injury away, possibly, and not to have really started big games for Ireland, not to have experienced that pressure, and maybe you can't experience it in warm-up matches anyways. Like, should he be starting one of these warm-up games?
I think I would love to see Carty start one. I'd love to see Carberry start one, and Sexton probably needs to start one. So that suddenly means that's the conundrum for Joe. You have 3 10s starting different games if he goes with that out of 4 games. So maybe Johnny to start the last one in the lead in. But I think it's worth any out half who's particularly under Joe's system, the out half is central to the overall function of the group. In New Zealand, they've a much more diluted sense of responsibility. They throw Barrett in last week into fullback. The world didn't change. There was no volcanoes erupting. There was just, that's it. They get on with it because they have they spread the responsibility across their team for decision making. And Joe doesn't do that, and he directs it very much through Johnny. When Johnny's gone, I suspect he does it roughly the same. Whether Joe Carberry or Jack Carty or Ross Byrne have the same gravitas with the group than Johnny Sexton does remains to be seen in terms of decision making, but Joe directs it through their 10. So each one of them, if they're going to the World Cup, needs at least 80 minutes to get accommodated with calls, responsibility levels, kicking under pressure, defence, passing, all the things that come with being a 10 under Joe Schmidt regime.
Have they not been doing some work on sort of that leadership vacuum if Sexton isn't there over the last while? If you hear a lot about Gary Ringrose, that it's become a very vocal presence in the dressing room now, that actually nobody can replace Johnny Sexton as that leader if he's not there, and that if he isn't there, actually it can be spread out, that you can, Ringrose, Henshaw can step in and between them all take that on.
I think so, yeah. But even with, just to go back to Carty there, I remember they had an open training session up in Belfast last season, and it was a rare thing we got to actually watch an open session, and it was 56 minutes, and it was all just ball and play. And Sexton and Carberry were both injured and just doing shuttle runs, and Carty ran the whole thing for the 56 minutes. He was in a 10 just running the cutter, and he looked like really at home doing it. So I think he's the kind of guy who I think he can do it. I love watching him for Connacht, but as you said before, I think Ringrose is stepping up a fair bit. You've got a Manny in there as well who can lead, and even guys like, I think Tyke Furlong is a guy they're hearing a bit more from, and even a guy like James Ryan is getting a bit more vocal in there as well, I think. So, they'll have to do it. They'll need it out there.
You mentioned the back row there, and it was interesting listening to Neil last week. He was talking to one of the Welsh journalists about Toby Fallett, how at that stage you hadn't been ruled out and how they hadn't really missed him, that actually in the Welsh back row so many players had stepped up that even if he does come back, he's going to face a struggle to get back in the team, and the depth that they have. And you think where Ireland were 2 or 3 years ago in the back row, and probably felt we had the best back row in the Northern Hemisphere, if not in the world, when you had O'Mahony, O'Brien, Heaslip and Stander all in there. Now that Heaslip and O'Brien are gone, is the back row suddenly a little bit weaker for Ireland, a bit of an area of concern, not the area of strength that it once was?
Yeah, they have to bring Jack Conan Like, you know, I think O'Mahony, Van der Fleer and Stander will go, but they have to bring Conan now because they do have to have one guy. You need that explosive kind of athlete now, and as you said, if O'Brien and Levy aren't there, you need to have that guy who can sort of change a game or can break tackles, because I think the others their strengths are a bit more kind of subtle around the pitch. You need that kind of big kind of blockbuster kind of guy. So, but yeah, it's definitely even compared to 2011, they had, was it Ferris, O'Brien, Heaslip, Leamy, and Wallace got injured. Like that was, I think, definitely it's not anywhere the strength there was, you know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, like, I'd certainly bring Jack. I think, as you say, he can bring that's something different. I think CJ, again, by his own standards, has had a quiet season.
Is that the thing, that actually CJ Stander's peak is probably a good bit higher than Jack Conan's, but actually where Jack Conan is right now is ahead of where CJ Stander is right now?
Personally, yeah, I think so. I think on form as well. I just think that CJ is one of these players who, if he gets on top of you when he carries, he's in the game and, you know, everything's going well. When you stop CJ, like, you know, he struggles, and he obviously, his work ethic, he can't fault it, but he just doesn't have that impact that he normally does. If he's getting gain line, if he's getting over nice and handy, easy yards, picking it up, like, Ireland are in the game and CJ's in the game. If he stopped, it's a different kettle of fish.
So teams figure him out?
Yeah, well, I think so, yeah, a little bit, yeah, you know, because you always expect him, CJ gets it and he's going to make an impact. When he wasn't making an impact, you're kind of scratching your head a little bit, and I think that Jack Conan has a little bit more to him, just a bit more footwork as well, and just a little bit more nous as well. And I just think that he's going to have a big World Cup, I feel.
So what's the probable starting back row at the moment? Is it O'Mahony, Van der Fleer, and then one of Conan or Stander?
It'd be a huge statement if he started Conan against Scotland. I don't think he will, but that would be a huge statement, because Stander has been one of his guys, like, the last couple of years.
And Joe's one of those, you've got money, you got it in the bank, you know, and he trusts players and he goes with his tried
But is
test.
the bank now not what happened in the Six Nations?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is, but I still think that the way he is, he trusts these players and he wants to show trust and say, look, okay, we didn't have a great Six Nations. Now is a chance to redeem yourself, and you know.
It'll probably indicate the selection in that Scottish game will probably indicate how we're going to play very clearly at number 8. Yeah. If Standard goes in there, I would expect we're going to play a ruck focused game and a possession game, and I think if he selects Conan, it would suggest he's probably prepared to take a few more risks. He's prepared for a back rower to offload a bit more, because Jack naturally is going to do that more than CJ. So it's probably
so is that the biggest call, the way you see it, as to how Ireland will actually play?
It'll be one of the key ones, yeah. And you know, if we all sit back from afar and look at selection and muse what thoughts are in Joe's mind, it's a very strong indicator of the style with which we'll play, who he selects there, yeah.
Anybody who listens on a regular basis knows your frustrations, I think, with Ireland's style of play.
Yeah.
Realistically, are you expecting any great change?
No, I don't. I actually think he will try and hit a reset button and try and execute a similar type of game plan better, and he'll put pressure on the players to execute it better, and they have done that before. They've done it. I mean, they climbed to number 2 in the world. They won a Grand Slam doing it, and they've had huge success with it. My big concern is it looked like it was found out. It was found out in the Six Nations. My concern is we then persist with it, with the view that it's going to be something that we just implement better. That'll be a big concern for me. I do think we need to be a little more creative than we were in the Six Nations, but we don't have a crystal ball. Joe has coached teams that have been very creative, including Leinster's Heineken Cup winning teams, so I would hope he's some kind of balancing act between the two, yeah.
What are you thinking? Any great change from what we saw in the Six Nations?
You'd hope so, because I was there that day against Wales, and it was just unbelievable. Like, I just couldn't believe this was, you know, Joe Schmidt's Ireland, the way they were playing. Like, just even things like discipline and just the body language of players and stuff. You'd hope so. You'd hope that, well, they'll definitely have the starter plays and things like that, and the trick plays. We know they'll definitely have those up to thing, but you'd hope that there's some kind of, that they're kicking on, or that they've kept something back, that there's an innovation, or there's an expansion in the way they play. You'd hope that, because if they don't, then, you know, the blueprint is there now for everyone to go and beat them from England and Wales, you know.
Does Ty Byrne definitely go in the 31?
he should do. But yeah, there's kind of a growing feeling that maybe he's taken a really good look at Klein, you know, because after that England game, after just how badly Ireland were out-muscled, was he thinking, I need a bit of a bully boy now in the pack? And I just have a feeling, is he a guy who could be a bolter now the next couple of weeks? I know he's eligible. He becomes eligible 2 days before the Italy game, and I just wonder, is he a guy that, which is going to divide opinion if he gets into the mix, but is he a guy who could just kind of come in and offer something? Because even go back to Leinster, Schmidt always liked that hard man in the second row. He had Nathan Hines and Brad Thorne, and does he see Klein as that same kind of mould of a player?
I'd heard he's the other thing is the combinations for scrummaging. He is scrummaged for this season behind John Ryan, and John Ryan is probably the next best tight head scrummaging prop to Tig. Does he go with that combination? You look at South Africa destroying the Australian scrum.
So what, he's thinking for the final 15-20 minutes of a game?
Yeah, well, I mean,
inside out.
You certainly don't. I think there's going to be, we mentioned earlier that there's going to be a physical World Cup. Teams are preparing bigger than they were in the 2015 version. I think there's going to be a big emphasis on the scrum, which I think is a good thing for rugby union, because it re-emphasises the importance of the scrum. You're seeing the South Africans and actually the All Blacks even, look, they're not asking their front rowers to do a whole lot more now than scrummage, where we've got all singing, all dancing front rowers who've got to cover a lot of ground and hit a lot of rucks. Do we actually just need to row back on their tasks and their demands and say, make sure we've got a solid scrum? The John Ryan, John Klein combination was really, really powerful for Munster. So they're important decisions, but I'd agree with you, Rory. I could certainly see the John Klein bolter thing coming out of nowhere and surprising people too. Yeah,
that will be a bit of a shit show if that does happen, I would imagine, though. And maybe much like the Jim McConnelly returning to the Dubs, and a lot of people feel that maybe Jim Gavin doesn't mind this sideshow of everybody spending the last 2 weeks talking about Jim McConnelly rather than talking about 5 in a row. That from Joe Schmidt's point of view, if this is going on and everyone's debating the rights and wrongs of Jean Klein being parachuted in ahead of Tig Byrne, that they can just go about their business under the radar.
Everyone will pile in. Everyone will have a say in it. And as you said, you can just be lads. We'll just get on with it in the bubble and get on with our job. So it could be a masterstroke.
Where do you stand on it? Players are eligible. You picked them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. They come over. I think, especially you look at Jean. Like, Joe's not going to call him into a squad if he's not going to take a real good look at him. And I think he's seen an awful lot over the past couple of weeks of where he is, what he likes about him as well, I think, and I think he will get a chance, and then it's kind of up to him, isn't it? And again, this could be one of the things there. It could be a bolter, but then it could be an injury that covers it, and look, we're all going to try and second guess what it is. But yeah, once you're eligible, I've no real issues. I'm happy with that. They've kind of kicked on the eligibility of an extra year or two.
But has Joe Schmidt been talking to Jean Klein then for the last year? Would he have been having him in and around camps?
Yeah, he was chatting to Ben Teo a couple of years ago, and Teo was, just before Teo went across to England, like, he was a year away from getting eligible, and Schmidt was in his ear apparently, so yeah, he definitely was.
But I think you bring over these players as well. You look at James Lowe, like, he's come over here and they know that he can, like, he's going to be eligible, you know, and Gibson Park as well. You know, these players are coming over here and they know it. And CJ as well was one. Like, these guys.
Gibson Park eligible for this World Cup?
No, they're both. They will be eligible, I think, is what Jimmy is saying. Yeah. I think Lowe is eligible like the day after the World Cup's over, so I would suspect he'll probably end up in a Six Nations squad next year. But sure, the All Blacks have been pillaging the Pacific Islands for the best part of the last 25 years. So, Ireland
will play Japan after Scotland, and like half the Japan team is going to be, you know, Wimpy van der Walt and Luke Thompson and all these guys. So it's going on everywhere. Like, you know,
I still get upset about Jared Payne being picked ahead of Luke Fitzgerald at the last World Cup. It's just not right. It's just not right.
He learned the anthem, though, you know. That's like.
Jack Charlton was English. Where was Cascarino from?
Well, any other potential bolters?
Addison is the one, I think.
Exciting player.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting with, as we said earlier on, that he can cover midfield, but also is Conway under a bit of pressure as well then for one of those back three if he is going to bring him? And he does like him, and I think he had a great year last year until obviously an injury came up, but he certainly has that ability to slot in across the board, and that's what I think a lot of players we're looking at are eligible to cover a few positions.
Yeah, does he need Conway if you have Earls, Stockdale, Larmer?
Just the thing, and I think Henshaw playing full back in that England game was quite telling, because I wonder in his thoughts was he wants to bring Chris Farrell as well and Addison, and then that means there's no Conway. It means you've got two midfielders covering the back three. So unfortunately, I think he might be one of the guys to miss out by the sounds of it. But
so you're going to be at the Aviva for us next Saturday covering this Italy game. Are you going to be getting annoyed, frustrated with Ireland's style of play if it's like what we saw in the Six Nations? Are you very much going,
no,
everything's fine until we get to the World Cup and I'll judge them then?
No, I'll be judging away straight from the off and getting annoyed if it looks the same. I would love to see it look a little different. And I entertain the idea that one or two magic starter plays changes everything. That, we pull it out of the bag and therefore we're creative. I think it has to be a general change across the board in terms of how we approach it. Not the exact same with one or two magic starter plays to get us out of trouble. That's not a sufficient change. But hopefully I'm not cranky and moaning too much.
It's all that cryotherapy.
Yeah.
You never fully recovered.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to see then, James, before we finish up from these 3 or 4 games? Is it just everyone get through it without any injuries?
Yeah, get through, and just hopefully a bit of damage limitation in terms of injuries, and hopefully no one too significant. But yeah, I agree with Dunne as well in terms of the style of play. If we can just, we can produce a starter play handily enough, and everyone thinks it's all rosy, but it's off that phase play, it's off when you've gone 10, 12, 13 phases, what else we have, rather than just that wrap around, and that's tired, and I'm sure he will. Look, I'm going to go in positive enough, and I'm sure he's going to have a few things up his sleeve, and look, hopefully they'll have some shackles off and Andy be in good health form.
I think the injury, I hope so too, but I think the injury, if we got out of the next 4 games with no major injury, it would be a huge result. I think you'd take that above the actual results of the games going into the World Cup.
We have a text in saying, to flip the bolter question around, who might be the surprise players to miss out?
Yeah.
Well, did we just touch on them? Yeah. Byrne and Conway, possibly?
Potentially, Gordon Darcy missed out kind of 4 years ago, and then you had 2011 famously O'Leary and Fitzgerald. Sorry to bring it up again, but there could be, it would, as you said, after the Six Nations, guys who we thought were nailed on, their heads are on the block.
We couldn't be questioning it.
Yeah, and Schmidt might even want to make a statement and go, if as you said, if he left home, a big name, Ian Henderson or something, the message that sends to the squad is, lads, start pulling your socks up now, But,
how worried are you about South Africa?
Very. They look so strong. They look so energetic and positive, and just that Rassie Erasmus magic that he seemed to sprinkle and charm everyone around Munster. He's done a very, very similar job in South Africa. He's been so pragmatic too. He went on a tour of Europe and just picked up all the guys who've been playing their trade in England and France and earning hundreds of thousands multiplied by 16 for the rand to come back home and buy Transvaal. But he's bringing them all back into the World Cup squad to get their absolute best quality player in the squad. He seems to have mobilised them into quite a force, and it's a pretty horrible thought that if everything goes well for us in the group stages, our reward is to play them.
Well, there's a few texts in saying if the quarter-final happens tomorrow morning, do you want to play South Africa or New Zealand?
I would say New Zealand right now.
Right now, based on last week.
Yeah.
New Zealand,
Does it in a way, and barring it being an absolute calamity for Ireland this World Cup like 2007, does it ease the pressure almost in a way for the group stage that there is no finishing first, finishing second in the pool? It doesn't really matter because it's going to be an unbelievably tough game no matter what. Whereas always it feels just this: we have to win. We have to win the pool.
Fair point, yeah, I think.
That's a real positive spin.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Feel better now.
I actually do. It's like, thanks, Nathan. I feel a bit better.
There you go. It
doesn't really matter where we finish. Once it's not third.
Yeah. Things will be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really open World Cup, though. I think. Like I could easily see, like Scotland could beat Ireland and then lose to Japan in the last round. Like there's going to be loads of upsets. Like Fiji are playing Australia the first weekend. That's got upset written all over it. So I think you're going to see loads of. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think you're going to see a team cruise through it undefeated. I think it's going to be a couple of results. So,
all right, we've plenty of time to talk about it over the next 7 weeks before that opening game against Scotland. Rory, Andy, James, thanks a lot for coming into the studio. We are going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to be talking to Stephen Ward, who is playing this season with Stoke City in the Championship. They get underway at 3 o'clock.
Off the ball on News Talk. Screen Time with John Farty.
He's played everything from Robin Hood to policeman. But now Kevin Costner is a talking philosophical dog.
Call it fate, call it luck. All I knew was I was meant to be his dog.
This week on Screen Time, I talked to the director of The Art of Racing about working with dogs, children and Kevin Costner.
Screen Time with John Farty.
Brought to you by Stella Cinemas.
Download the podcast now or tune in this evening at 6.
On News Talk.
Relaxing afternoons with Harvey Norman. Transform your weekend lie-in with a brand new bed. Visit Harvey Norman today and rest easy. You're in safe hands with our sleep specialists.
Go, Harvey, go!
Your to-do list. It's always pretty chock-a-block. There's the things from yesterday you never got to yesterday, and the things for today you'll probably put off till tomorrow. But don't put off saving up to €597. Go direct to Energia and switch to Ireland's cheapest dual fuel bundle. For the biggest savings, the thing to do is to always go direct. Visit energia.ie. Energia, the power behind your savings. EAB €1,520 based on average annual usage. 12-month contract, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax, T's and C's and early termination fee apply. Valid from July 2019 and subject to change. Verification and T's and C's at energia.ie/EAB.
Italian summers, long days together in the sun, living la bella vita. In Ireland it's called the good life, and it's 3 days in June and maybe a weekend in August. But even in Irish summers, you can taste La Bella Vita with Italy's favourite beer, Birra Moretti. Ah, delicioso. Great taste, never lost in translation. Birra Moretti, l'italiana autentica. That means authentically Italian. Always drink responsabile. Visit drinkaware.ie.
This summer, Hudson Bay Hotel are launching Ireland's largest lakeside resort. Families can enjoy the world's tallest inflatable water slide, the new Kids Adventure Club, Viking cruises, a delicious new family diner, and so much more. Uncover fun, adventure, and togetherness. Summer all taken care of at Hudson Bay Hotel. Book now at hudsonbayhotel.com.
Introducing Go Loud, the new app that brings together your favourite radio stations, podcasts and music. Download the Go Loud app for free or listen online at goloudnow.com. Go Loud, podcasts, radio and music to your ears.
At Leia Healthcare, we understand that you have a lot to juggle. That's why we're